Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I've got some fun spring tiered tray DIYs for you. Of course, they could just be used on a shelf, but they're smaller DIYs, perfect for a tiered tray, using lots of Dollar Tree items, and actually a lot of items that are even cheaper than what you can find at the Dollar Tree. So it's super budget friendly. Let's get started. For this DIY, I have a sign that I picked up. I don't even remember where, but I picked up stuff at the thrift store or on clearance after holidays, and they're easy to make over. So I just sanded that down a little bit, gave it a coat of a Waverly chalk paint in the color white, and then I pulled out some stamps and the stamp block, stamp ink pad, all the things that I picked up from Dollar Tree, and I'm trying to experiment with them. So I'm using the little stamp block to grab these words. It says, "Have a nice day." My Dollar Tree only had a couple different colors of ink pads, so I just grabbed the black and I figured it would be a good place to start. And I'm just going to use a baby wipe to clean up any edges where any ink may have gotten so I didn't accidentally transfer that. We're going to put this in the bottom right corner of our little block sign. And this worked very well. I just was, careful with it and make sure to get a good press down, and I thought it came out nice. So, clean off the stamp, always clean it off right away. And then I have these flower stickers. These were from a journaling type group class thing that I went to, and there was some things left over, and I just had them in my stash. So just peel that off and put that on. That is it. Super simple, nothing complicated here. But I love the colors of these. I thought it was perfect for springtime. I love the violet and the purple and the blues. And anyways, I love how that came out. The next one is another block of wood. I don't know where this came from. I painted it white or whitewashed it white, or maybe it came that color. I honestly don't remember, but it's just a wood block. And then I have these colors from HTV Ront. They're like blues and purples. And this stencil set from Hobby Lobby. Great price on them. You can always get those seasonal ones at least 50% off. And there was 2 full-size stencils, and we're only using part of one of them. So I'm putting a little bit of painter's tape on the edge. I'm going to do the butterfly on this sideways so the edges won't be on all of it, if that makes sense. So I'm wanting to make sure I just put a little painter's tape so that no paint kind of got down on the side there. And we're going to stencil this. What I'm doing, I'm trying to do like a fade effect. So I'm trying to do like darker blue and then moving it into purple. It's a very bluish purple. I was trying to kind of coordinate the colors from the first DIY, so that was kind of like the inspiration for the color palette. These paints are acrylic paints from HTV Ront that they sent me, and they are amazingly pigmented, like super pigmented. But with a stencil, I'm just using a stencil brush from the Dollar Tree, and of course you don't want to have too much paint on your paintbrush so you don't have bleed through. So that's why you see me dabbing it off on a paper towel. And I'm mixing the colors, so I start with like a darker blue, and then I mix it with a little bit of other blue, and then I go to add some more purple, all with the same paintbrush. I didn't change it out in between because I did want that blending. And then I did go in with the little paintbrush and touched up a couple areas and added in a little bit more purple towards the center. Once it's completely dry obviously here, I did sand it down to rough it up. That also faded it just a little bit. That's obviously going to be your, to your taste. But I love how this one came out. I think the colors are really rich and pretty. It's kind of hard to see in this lighting how the center is a little bit more purple, but it is. And I loved how this one came out. Super simple. For this next one, I have this little mini cutting board that I had previously DIY'd, and I kind of just sanded that down to start over. We're going to give this a couple of coats of white Waverly chalk paint here in the center, and I'm just trying to stay off of, just stay on the center part, but we are going to go ahead and dry brush across the whole thing. So I'm going to wipe off any excess paint from my paintbrush, and I am going to do a little bit of a dry brush around the whole thing. I just wanted to lighten it up for this one. I like the color of that wood, but for these DIYs, I didn't want that richer, darker color. So I did dry that with my heat gun, and I did a second coat on the front there just to make sure that I had really good coverage. And then I'm going to go in with those same paint colors from the last DIY and another stencil from that same stencil set from Hobby Lobby. And I'm kind of just doing the same thing. I'm just doing varying shades, kind of working my way to the inside, blending the colors, and just kind of doing what I feel. I did tape off a good amount of this stencil because one, I didn't want to use all of it, and then the leaves I did want to go in with some green. So I did that and just kind of took my time here because I really had to hold the stencil down. There wasn't really a good way for me to tape it down. And even if I do, I usually try to tape it down in the center or hold it down in the center while I'm doing the stenciling. So now you can see I started peeling off the tape where the leaves were. I'm using a broken paintbrush. When I went to use it, the handle fell off and I was like, well, I'm already in this. I got to hold this, down. So this paintbrush was not super great that I used for the green here, but I wanted a smaller one and my stencil brush was a little too big. So once it was all dry, I went in with a fine tip paintbrush and some white paint and just touched up some of those areas. And then once it was all dry, I did sand it down again. Like I did the other DIY, just because that's what I like. You do what you like. But we're just going to sand that down and wipe off all of the dust. And here's how this one came out. It looks really cute, just kind of layered in a tiered tray. And I love this color palette for spring. For this DIY, I have this mini picture frame that I picked up at a thrift store. The tag says 49 cents, so I definitely didn't pay more than that, but it might have only been 25 cents. So I wanted to take the insides out, and then I realized this frame at the back is attached. So I couldn't remove it, but I didn't want to get any paint on it. So I just covered the plastic part, or what would in some frames would be glass, but this one was just plastic. I covered that with painter's tape and then just put it back in so that I could paint freely here. And I'm using a stencil brush to get into the grooves, but we're going to do more of that purpley color that I did. And I did a couple of coats of this. The pearly color was pretty, but I wanted to go for something more vibrant. And then I took a small paintbrush and I did the inside and outside of the frame. That did take a couple of coats as well because it wasn't that texture. It took like 3 coats. It was just a little bit more glossy. And then I did use that little paintbrush to get in between all of those little beads as well because I just wanted a really nice, vibrant color. That's just what I was going for. For the inside of the frame, we're going to go back to our stamps, using another stamp set from the Dollar Tree. You could also use like a piece of scrapbook paper that had a really pretty image, or like a calendar page, something like that. Even something from like a magazine or something. But I picked out this pretty floral piece that I thought, well, it fit well in there as far as the size of the frame, and I just thought it went well with what I was doing. I wasn't sure. I felt like the ink wasn't coming off as good on it this time, so I did a test on a piece of paper, and it worked just fine. It's not incredibly vibrant. I don't know what I should do to the ink pad. I think I'm supposed to store the ink pad upside down, actually. I need to go do that. I think that would help. But once again, I cleaned off the edge and just stamped this. I just used a piece of paper that was inside the frame, but you could, of course, just cut a piece of scrap paper down if you needed to, or computer paper. And we're just going to put that back in the frame, get that nice and situated, and that is it. These little frames are easy to find at thrift stores, but Dollar Tree has them too. But I love how bright and colorful, and by nature, like it just kind of naturally had different shades in the frame because some of it got a little bit heavier, but I love that look. For this DIY, I've got this little ceramic succulent plant from the Dollar General. They're $1, but I picked a bunch of them up when they were on clearance. I probably paid 10 or 20 cents. So we're going to add a little something to the planter, and I've got these pearly beads, pearly stickers from the Dollar Tree. I have several different sizes and stuff in my stash, and I am really, really trying to work through my stash. I have a lot of little things like this, little embellishment pieces, and yeah, I'm just trying to work through them. So this goes in and out of focus because, as you can see, my glasses keep popping in, and the camera didn't know what to focus on. But I'm cutting it down strips of this, and I have started keeping a little pair of tweezers in my crafting stash, and it came in very handy for these to help hold them in place. And for this particular strip, the way the beads were spaced out, it didn't work for me to just wrap it around the whole thing. So I had to do one strip per side of the planter, just because of how they were spaced out and the side, the size of the sides of the planter, the size of the sides of the planter. And then I'm just going to do a really good coat with this pretty paint. Once again, I have so many colors of paint, and I don't do a lot of color in my decor, but I think it's fun to incorporate, especially for spring. So I'm trying to use up what I've got. And so I'm just going over this. I did do a couple coats. You can do it. See, I'm doing a nice little coat at the top of the planter. This is just a cement material. It soaks up the paint really well. And but I did do 2 coats and really just covered those beads across the top. And that did not take very long to dry in between, but use it, use your heat gun or a hair dryer if you need to, or just wait. Time also does the trick. And then I have some white paint that I had watered down. I'm just trying to use up some old white paint. So I'm just using a watered down one here. We're going to go across the beads and then dab it with a paper towel just to highlight them a little bit. And then I went around the edges of each corner, I guess. And then I did go around the flat surfaces of all of this as well, just very, very lightly, just to give it a little bit more depth and interest instead of it just being a flat color. And I just kind of went until I liked it. And then I did go in with a coat of Mod Podge on this. I don't know, the material, it may have not been super necessary, but it did probably help keep the paint on the beads at the top. And that was all there is to this one. Just gave the little pot a makeover, but I love this color and I like how this came out. This DIY is using what was a like cream colored ceramic plate on a stand from Dollar Tree, and I'd previously painted it and used it in a DIY, so it was originally like a cream colored. But we're just going to give this a couple coats of a Waverly chalk paint in white and let that dry. And then I have these mini foam carrots from the Dollar Tree. Now, the orange it came in was a little too vibrant for me. Now I understand that this more corally color is less realistic, but this is what I went with. So I gave it 3 of those carrots a coat of paint, and we're just going to glue them onto this little ceramic plate just to make a cute spring or Easter little display. These wood bunnies with the little cottontails are also from the Dollar Tree, came in a multi-pack. They had them this year, but I have them left over from last year or maybe the year before. Same thing with the carrots. And Hobby Lobby has similar things too. Probably other craft stores, I just don't get to a lot of the other ones. And so I had previously figured out how these would, be spaced. And so just 3 carrots and 2 bunnies with a little bit of hot glue. And I thought this was just a cute, fun little sign. And I love that it has a little kickstand to it because I don't have to like lean it up against anything. But yeah, that is all for this one. For this next DIY, this is a tag from probably Dollar General. Once again, I'm not sure. I buy a lot of my stuff at Dollar Tree, Dollar General, Hobby Lobby clearance, Dollar General clearance, and thrift stores. Those are my main areas. So I wanted to take this paper off, and so I did wet it down, although that didn't really do much, but I did find like a dry pocket. And once I got my little scraper underneath that, most of that came right off, and then I just continued using a damp paper towel to wet down the rest of it and scraped it and then sanded it to get the remaining off. Did not take much work with the sandpaper. And we're going to go back in again with this pretty coral color. I'm making some DIYs that kind of go together in case you didn't notice my little themes. And doing a smooth coat on the top and then a kind of a light coat on the edges. It's not like fully covered, but I knew I wasn't going to keep the paint fully off the edges, that some was going to drip down, so I figured might as well just go for it. And that did take 2 coats. And then once again from my stash, but these are from the Dollar Tree, these gold butterflies are a rub-on transfer. These are tough. The gold ones at Dollar Tree stink. You can see I already messed up there. The transfer, and in the beginning when I didn't want it to, stuck really, really easily, but then struggled to transfer. And then the transfer sheet itself was not really sticky, so that's why it shifted so easily, so I really had to hold it still. I'm going to make it work. I'm using up the rest of these transfers, but I do not recommend the gold rub-on transfers from the Dollar Tree. They're just not their best ones. So I sped this up, but I did also leave a lot of this in here for you to see that it was a struggle. One thing that I try to do is go for a little bit more rustic look, so it doesn't matter that it's not perfect. Now this middle one here, this is not a transfer. This is a sticker, a wall sticker from Dollar Tree. It's kind of in their usually in their frame home decor area. So I did one of those and then two of these awful transfers. But once again, I'm using up what's in my stash. I am determined. And I thought the butterflies, of course, fun for spring. But then this is a little bit more vibrant, plus my transfers struggled a little bit. So I'm going to rough this up with a little bit of sandpaper. I'm also going to sand down the edges here, is what I'm using a nail file for. But I just sanded across the whole thing to rough it up and make everything, make your accidents look more on purpose. And then I'm going in more with that watered down paint. Doesn't need to be watered down, mine just is. I did a dry brush with that, so I put on my paintbrush and then wiped a lot of that off. And then once that was dry, we're going to seal that in with some Mod Podge, and just to kind of keep those stickers in place. And that'll also tone down the shininess of the gold sticker a little bit as well. And then I'm just going to thread the twine that was already on it back through, just for, I don't know, decor purposes. You could also add on some beads there, or put this at the end of a beaded garland. That would also be really pretty. But I was happy how this one came out in the end. And that is going to do it for today's video. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. If you are new here, I would love it if you considered subscribing to my channel. Here is kind of how I displayed them on my tier tray. I just want to kind of show them as individual collections. But thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in my next one.